ਇੱਕ ਓੰਕਾਰ ਸਤਨਾਮ ਕਰਤਾ ਪੁਰਖ ਨਿਰਭਉ ਨਿਰਵੈਰ ਅਕਾਲ ਮੂਰਤ ਅਜੂਨੀ ਸੈਭੰ ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦ ਜਪ ਆਦ ਸਚ ਜੁਗਾਦ ਸਚ ਹੈ ਪੀ ਸਚ ਨਾਨਕ ਹੋਸੀ ਪੀ ਸਚ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ 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 ਬਾਣੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਗੁਰੂ ਹੈ ਬਾਣੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਾਣੀ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਕਹੇ ਸੇਵਕ ਜਨ ਮਾਨੇ ਪਰਤਖ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਿਸਤਾਰੇ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤ ਬਾਣੀ ਹਰ ਹਰ ਤੇਰੀ ਸੁਨ ਸੁਨ ਹੋਵੇ ਪਰਮਗਤ ਮੇਰੀ ਜੀ ਸੀਤਲ ਹੋਵੇ ਮਨੁਆ ਸਤਿਗੁਰ ਕਾ ਦਰਸ਼ਨ ਨ ਪਾਏ ਜੀਓ ਫਿਰਤ ਫਿਰਤ ਪ੍ਰਭ ਆਇਆ ਪਰਿਆ ਤੋ ਸਰਨਾਏ ਨਾਨਕ ਕੀ ਪ੍ਰਭ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਭਗਤੀ ਲਾਏ ਨਾਨਕ ਕੀ ਪ੍ਰਭ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਭਗਤੀ ਲਾਏ ਪਰਮ ਸਤਿਕਾਰ ਜੋ ਗੁਰੂ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਸਾਧ ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀ ਗੱਜ ਵੱਜ ਕੇ ਫਤਿਹ ਬੁਲਾਓ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ honored and grateful to have our older brother by Tarsem Singh join us today on the live. They are an inspirational Gursikh who probably won't appreciate me referring to them as such because they're so very humble. And I recently came to discover that Bhai Sabji, amongst other things, which we're going to be talking about today, they actually were behind the engine, the platform, the idea of Sikhi to the max, which when I came into Sikhi when I was about sort of 18 years ago, when I was about 18 years old, we would go to camps and there would be translations of Gurbani on the boards and they would be able to be accessing those things because of this wonderful program that has now gone across the entire world and inspired countless others to create software programs like iGurbani and such like other platforms. So a really, really amazing seva that's allowed Gursikhs to have a very interactive and easy way to access an understanding of Gurbani. So to that, if I introduce you, I say thank you, Bhai Sabji. Thank you for that seva. I'm very grateful for that personally from my own journey. So thank you for that. So without further ado, I'd like to just introduce to everybody Bhai Tarsem Singh ji, who created the Sikhi to the Max platform. And they've written this wonderful book, which is entitled Why Am I Here? Which is what we're going to be talking to you about today. So first and foremost, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. How are you, bro?
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Dekhe Nihal Ji. I'm good. How are you?
It's an honor and a privilege to have you. Where am I reaching out to you from? You're outside London, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm in Warwick. Generally in Coventry. Yeah,
okay, we're not going to hold that against you, Paj, right? Okay. So the Singh sent me a copy of your book, which I'm really grateful to have received. I read the book in a couple of days. I'll be very honest with you. I picked it up and it was one of the books that I pick up a book and I read a bit and I put it down and a few seasons later I'll pick it back up and I'll read a few chapters. But sincerely, Baj, I can honestly say to you that I picked up your book and I read it in a couple of days and I really, really thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a really beautiful read. But first and foremost, what made you think about writing the book? What was the motivation behind you before creating the text?
So we've been doing we were doing Sikhi classes since about 1995 or something like that. And what happened recently was we were doing a camp. We do a, at Coventry there's been a camp going for about 20 something years. And we were doing a 16 plus age group class, and there was a couple of us, me and Raman Singh, and we were doing a couple of presentations, and Raman said, why don't we create a course? It seems pretty just structured, just talk about Sikhi in a kind of structured way. So we created this Sikhi Enlightenment course, and we've been going out to various people, various cities as well. We've been to East London actually, and Midlands, and we went out to Europe. We've done it in Punjabi as well, and we went out to the jail as well, the Sikh prisoners. But from there, what we realised is obviously there's a need to just kind of understand Sikhi from a really basic level. That's in the Sikhi circles as well, but also in the Western circles, it's difficult. If someone's really interested in Sikhi, what do you give them? I mean, we can give them basic Sikhi is absolutely fantastic platform anyway that anyone can go to now and access it. But if we want to talk about something in someone's hand and say, okay, go on, just go through that on your own and see what you make of it. So that's kind of the basis of it. And the course kind of had three areas. It was like we were thinking, one is someone who doesn't know anything. One is someone who's learning and wants to learn a bit more. And the third part was someone who wants to do a reset on their Sikhi, just start from, okay, I've done Sikhi, you know how it is. We get into Sikhi, we do our Amrit, and we just kind of get into a routine, and then sometimes the routine changes, and sometimes you need a reset button. So it's just to re-look at Sikhi again and just say, have I got a framework that I could just compare myself against? And so that's kind of why there's a kind of a question format in the book as well after each chapter, I think. So just to reflect on, is that something that I've done? When we talk about identity, or whether we talk about slowing down. So sorry to give you a big deep answer to that, but that's kind of what.
No, I think that's really insightful. To be honest with you, I felt my ego being crushed there, because you said it was about the basics, and I think that we all too often overlook the basics, or we think that the basics are not basic for us. But if you look at Gurbani, again, they're talking about the same messages over and over again, and you can't hear those messages enough. And you say it as the basics, but when I read the book, for me, it was awakening about just how much I had actually moved away from basic concepts of just kindness and giving and forgiveness, which are concepts which we teach children, but for some reason we think that they're beyond us. And we don't practice those with our relatives and our families. And reading it was actually quite a shock for me, and it actually hit my ego quite hard that whilst it's a book of basics, how many of those basics am I actually practicing day to day, which is quite awakening for me as well, Baj.
Yeah, I think that's with everybody. I think you're being a bit humble there, but I think everybody has that thing where we just need to, there's a message that Guruji gives, but Guruji gives it in different ways. We need to hear it in so many different ways. Because our hirda, when we say deep down, it does get distracted. It gets distracted easily, So we need a sangat, we need methods, we need different things. So I agree. I don't think it's. I mean, use that word loosely, basic. I think there's nothing basic about Gurbani. Guruji is, he's given us a shake every time we read it. I think that's what it is.
But do I have permission to read from your book?
Sorry?
Do I have permission to read from your book?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, I want to read something to you, Baj, because this sort of caught me a little bit off guard. And I just wanted to get your take on this. This is on page 18, under the subheading, Giving Life Meaning. You say, whenever we ask for happiness, it always comes with its own associated pain. Pleasure and pain are a package. We can never experience constant happiness through material things, because everything physical must come to an end. And then you quote a Shabad from Guru Nanak Maharaj, where you say, where Guru Nanak Dev Ji evidences the point, and you say, "Oh Nanak, it is absurd to ask to be spared from pain by begging for comfort. Pleasure and pain are the two garments that people wear, given by the court of the Lord." And a question comes to my mind, but I just want to just ask you for a bit of clarification on this, because I understand that Dukh and Sukh is within the world, and like Maharaj talks about the care, and obviously Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj speaks about Bajitra Natak, this world play. But why is it the case that if we ask for Sukh in the world, that you say we're also going to be associated, we're also going to have to receive an equal amount of pain. I don't quite understand why. Just if we have sukh, I understand that it's dukh and sukh within the world, but why is it that if we have sukh in the world, that we must have an equal amount of dukh?
Because everything, our perception of sukh or happiness is not necessarily right, you know? So what Gurbani is teaching us is that just whenever we ask for something that we believe is happiness, it has to end. If something has to end, you're going to be sad. So like, there's another shabd it's close to that chapter. It's about, you know, das baltan bees varanatisa ka sundar kahave. Guruji talks in tens about our age, and in our tens, and in our 20s, and in our 30s, in our 40s. By the end of that shabd, Guruji says everything is a tuenda pahar. So like, you know, if you see a mountain and it's actually made of smoke, when you try to touch it, your hand just goes straight through it, you know? So the things that we're asking for, that we believe are happiness, they're actually not. They're actually a pain, because what they do is they actually distract us from Waheguru, and then eventually that becomes Maya, and that thing, when we touch it, it actually really isn't there. It's not really tangible, but in our life it feels like it's real. But it's just like Guruji calls it a supana. So true sukh is to ask for the sukh that never ends. Sadivi sukh, what we call Sadivi sukh. Sadivi sukh, it will never end when you get it. And that's an internal parkash. When the parkash happens inside, that you can't switch that off. Jida Kabir ji in Bani Guru, can I quote Bani a lot? I don't know what audience is like. I'm used to I'm talking. I'm just saying, Jida Kabir ji says, Kabir, Allah ki kar bandagi, jai simrat dukh jaye, dil mein sai pragate, bujhe balanti na hai. Do that bhakti, jithe dukh dur ho jave, but andar prakash ho jave, inside, bujhe balanti na, wo bujhdi nahi cheez, that thing doesn't switch off. Whereas everything else, it's dunya mukam fani, jada Guruji says, dunya muk jani, it's designed to die. And the universe has been created over and over and over and over again. And if we, from a scientific perspective, when we read Chaupe Sahib, jab ud kark kara kartara, praja tartab te apara jabe aap kark karat ho kab hu, tumhe milate tar sabun. The Guruji says even there that why Guru made this universe from an expansion, and it's expanding now, but then it becomes a vacuum again. Ud kark and a kark, so it becomes outward, then it goes inward, and Guruji calls it in many times. Kei bar pasreo pasar. This dunya, this universe has been made many times. So if the things being made and destroyed and made and destroyed, then we can't connect with that. But the sukh we're asking for is part of that creation, and it's not a true thing to be asking for. That's what our Guru's ultimately trying to make us understand. There's nothing wrong. Guruji tells us we can play inside of those things, like Nanak Satguru Petiye Puri Hoye Jugde Hasandiya Khelandiya Penandiya Khavandiya Viche Hoye Mo. That you can get liberated while you're in that thing, but a Gursik is nirlep from that, like a lotus. Didn't we say lotus its roots are in the dirt, but it doesn't get dirty, it just stays on top. It's a Sikhi is that. So that happiness that we're asking for, we have to ask for Gurmat happiness, and that's what we're trying to find in that part of that book, is what it's trying to describe there.
Can I continue on that top? I wanted to ask you then, boy, because I understand the concept of it. Like Maharaj says, Sarab Sukha mein pa liya, har jay badar na koi. That nothing else is going to compare to that. So, but something that I struggle with, and with Baj, I'm honest with you, is whilst I understand that on a Gurbani from Guru Sahib's Buddhi, I've got that soji where I have that understanding, right? But then if I find myself in a moment where I'm enjoying something, so for example with the family, and then Mrs. brings me an ice cream, yeah, I'm like, oh, this is nice. I'll enjoy it for a split second, but then I'll feel guilty. But it's in that I'll have an understanding that this is false, isn't it? We have that understanding that everything is false except Naam. And so then is it wrong to have an enjoyment in that way? Because, for example, I might be sitting on the sofa, the missus has gone out, the little one's gone out, I'm like, this is Anand. Yeah. But it's not really Anand in the true sense. And after a moment, you feel almost guilty for enjoying that experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Guruji said, Anand sab ko kahe, Anand Guru te jaane, that we have these experiences, but it's true that, remember, look, it's very easy for us to talk about a Sikhi at the highest level, and that sometimes I start doing that, and it's not right, because we have to build up to those things, and we can't, like today, I can't wake up today and say, whoa, I'm in fourth state now, Jyothe Avastha vich main pahunch gaya, and that's it, so yeah, I've reached it. You know, those things happen, you know, it takes time, it has to be done in a structured way, in its own way. But at the same time, Gurbani also says, if a human being is really, really in love with the Guru a lot, Guruji gives them it straight away. Har mele till na paye, jidan Gurbani kehndi, Guruji doesn't waste time either. So we are going to have to go through that phase where we're understanding, what do my eyes really like, and what do my ears really like, what does my tongue and taste really like, and where do I like going, where do I like. And you know, when we talked about those identities, we even form identities from, you know, it's called a foodie nowadays, and someone else is called a you know, a Manu fan, and a little, you know, there's lots of identity that we from our likes. They're all made from what we like, you know.
Guys, be careful. There's no Manu fans on this feed, all right? Sorry, please continue.
Yeah. So you know, these although we have to reach a stage that's above that, we have to first come through that. You know, we have to, because you know, there's the transformation of a person, like in the mystical chapter of that book. You know, it's talking about our you know, our taste. It has a ras sharir ke kya kat naam nivas hai na, sharir de ras bahut ras hai sharir de, and but how would it get naam ras then? So what Guru's saying is that our jeeb, our tongue tastes sweet stuff, but the real sweet stuff is amrit ras. It's amrit nectar. Our ears hear all sorts of sounds of music, but the real sound is anahad shabd. Our eyes see many, you know, akhi dekhna rajiya borang tamashi. The eyes don't stop wanting to see things, but the real is the darshan of Waheguru. You know, that's the real thing that we're looking for. So these have to be redirected, but they can't. You know, that takes time. So there's nothing wrong with saying someone's going through a stage of Sikhi and they like ice cream, and that's still okay. You know?
I was using it as a classic example because I think a lot of people, Podge, and I think I mentioned to you when we were speaking the other day on the phone, I think a lot of people struggle with guilt, which is closely tied to anxiety. What should I be feeling? I should be feeling this.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm not feeling this. I'm a bad person. And that did, so that they'll pick up a Gurkha Sahib, they'll recite some Bani, and they go, I'm not feeling Anand. I must be triple bad. Yeah. And that hinders the progress, overthinking about it. And I think this is something that this generation is doing. I think 3 or 4 generations ago, it would have just been to do the deed and follow the path.
Yeah.
And so I asked the question in a crass way using the example of ice cream, but I think there are a lot of people that do struggle. And to be honest, I count myself in there as well, where you have that feeling of, I'm not making that progress I should have done. And it might hinder that person from continuing to make those steps.
Mm. I understand, yeah. So, sorry, I wasn't mocking the ice cream example. I like it. It was a good one. I like ice cream as well. But what I mean is that, you know, in Gurbani, and Bhai Gurdashi discusses as well, it's called aluni chatiye. Aluni chatiye. That means, you know, when you're tasting something that has no taste, at the beginning you have to go through that way. There's no taste that's going to come through. Eventually that non-taste becomes a ras for you. I know that, but you have to go through a luni stage, because there's still an ego there. You know, when we say killing ego, sometimes it's talked as just like, yeah, we've got to kill our ego, but to kill that thing, it takes a surma. When we talk warrior, asli the warrior andara, when that internal warrior, the bada surma, you know, khalsa ta sige anyway, you know, I can't say I'm Surma, but they were Surma, they were warriors, but they were warriors because they were internally, and they killed that thing. Garda Raja, under fortress da Raja, Gussa, Hankar, all that stuff. They went inside and killed it. So to find that, so you know that when a person's feeling down and saying, I'm not achieving anything, sometimes you don't know what you're achieving. Sometimes it's invisible. So, for instance, you know, when we talked about, Karam is it's a philosophy, and it's sometimes I don't like to try to explain it in 2 sentences and stuff, but you know, when a Sikh does Amrit, for instance, when you go to do Amrit, you go to the Guru, and we say, Miss Hirdena, what the Panji Pyare say to a Gursikh is, Bhai, Sadhguru ke janam hai, government aaya. After they've done Amrit, as soon as you take an Amrit, your slate's cleaned. You know? Your slate's clean, but you won't know that. So, for instance, if I take a birth, I still don't know whether on my matha what's likhya is still 50,000 more, 10 more, 5 more. I don't know. But when I'm doing bhakti, those are things that are getting erased. But it won't necessarily show me that in my day-to-day part that I'm doing, for instance. It won't show me that in my day-to-day. I'm just thinking, whoa, I'm just doing loads of work. I'm not really getting a reward for it. But the invisible nature of Sikhi is all hidden aside on some of those things. Some of it's better not to know. And I imagine we did some kirtan or something like that and it knocked a few janams off. You'd be going, whoa, I knock janams off, I do. Make it level they point to. Sometimes it's better not to know. Ek Gursikh, I spoke to Gursikh.
That is quality. I've never heard anybody put it that way. That's quality, bro.
But I spoke to Gursikh once, and some Gursikhs can see their past janam as well. And sometimes he says, you don't want to know. It's best not to know because, your relationship now, there could have been a totally different relationship before. And you have to be really connected inside to be able to handle some of those things. So where Guruji's hidden it, it's best to say, Satguruji, tusi jande. Where Guruji, we say Guruji, I know there's different variations of 1699, that Guruji put a tent there. Guruji put a tent there for a reason, If there was a tent, I know there's another saying that it was open, and there's Sirlate, I accept that one too, But if there was a tent, Guruji puts that there for a reason. And Sadhguru Tak, Liya Mohe Papi Padda, he's covered up loads of things about this. Kevari Kirpa is that Guruji just didn't expose me as a crook. Because what's going on internally. When Miskinji, a lot. I listen to it a lot because you need to, I think you touched on it really well earlier, that you need to hear messages in different ways. I know, I can claim that I know these things. I know about the Sikhi, but you don't. When you hear it from a different angle, you say, I didn't like that. I haven't never understood it like that. Every Guruji is giving us loads of kirpa. Jai Prasad is Sagal Shidar Take. He says, Guruji, kirpa dinal, he's covered loads of things. And Miskinji, going back to that, sorry, Miskinji was saying, when you sit next to someone, if you could really see what's going in their head, you might not want to talk to them ever again. Someone could see what's going inside of us, so you might not ever want to talk. But Guru's covered all of that. That's a kirpa in itself. So there's many little kirpas that we have to recognize that Guruji's giving us, that it isn't always that I'm going to be levitating as soon as I do my partner. Sometimes what do we want from the Guru is that's a very, really interesting question. We could do just to talk about that, really, just about what do we really want, what are we asking for? And when we say Jan and a Gulam, and we say Chilla, and we say a Chilla means someone we're arrested, we're owned by the Guru, and we do his kam, like a chakkar, When a chakkar doesn't ask for anything, he says, whatever scrap I get, it's accepted. And it's very, very difficult, I understand, to be like that, and that's not just something we switch on. It's pyar. Pyar is a sacrifice.
But I'm feeling that. I'm proper feeling that, bro. I heard a katha just very quickly. I just thought it was so beautiful. It was the beginning of a katha, and Sant Hari Singh in the Dava wale, they were doing katha from Rakya the Shabad, and they said the first two labj, the first two labj is Gur Ka. Because just pause there. Because when you go to sleep, you get to say, I belong to the Guru. I'm of the Guru. Because bas. You're all right. You're okay. And when we go to sleep, say Guru Ka Shabad Rakavare. But just chill. You're saying Guru Ka, you've got a place, you've got a home. Maharaj is with you. And I think you're right. It's not necessarily for us to worry about those things. It's for us to just understand and be in acceptance that our duty is to serve. Our duty is to follow the Guru's hukum, right?
Hanji. And also, you talked about Soila there, and the Rakya this Shabad before Soila. But if you look at the first Shabad of Soila, the how is the center point of everything. That's where things revolve around in the Shabad. And, Tum gavo mere nirpao ka soila. Hon vari jit soila sada sukh hoye. What's Guruji saying? Nirpao ka soila. The nirpao jape sagal pao mite. When we jap nirpao, who's not afraid of anything, sada dar mit janda. Hon vari jit soila sada sukh hoye. Si var jande. And we sacrifice ourselves to that thing. When we talked about earlier, sada sukh hona, we're going to get happiness forever. it's a beautiful thing Guruji's given us, and that's beautiful. It's both beyond the chida, we can't. I think we can never really do enough ustat of the Bani, let alone Waheguru, no?
It's interesting you said that, Buzz, because we must have said the Shabbat so many times, but when you say it like that, it brings a renewed remembrance of what it means, and I think that's probably why I'm so grateful to have a chance to speak with Gurmukhs like you, because it's not knowing something, it's living something, and living something means hearing it over and until you're vibrating upon it, है ना? Waheguru, I can say that. Bro, I've been learning from you for about 15 years. I didn't even know it. I was learning from Sikhi to the max, and I was like, yo, this is the guy that created Sikhi to the max. On that point, I just want to quickly ask you a couple of questions. Sikhi to the max, like what the heck, man? Like how did it happen?
What happened was I was trying to do chords, and I tried to find out about Barney, and I used to have steaks and I used to really enjoy little, reading small steaks in English, but I wanted to kind of say, how to explore Bani, and it's very hard to explore it in English. There's this thing called Gurbani CD that was made in 2000, and they made a Word document of Bani, and that's fantastic in itself, just have it all Bani in one document, but you still couldn't search and do things. So what I did, I was it was technical. My background software development, and went on to directing software and teams and all that stuff. But at that time, I was hands-on. So I thought, let's have a go at this. And so what did it broke it down into Bhakti by writer, by rag, and all that, and each Bhakti obviously being defined by ang and all the rest of it. And so when it's in a database, it's really easy to search. So I was doing basic searches. My first, I still remember it, I searched for elephant. I don't know why, elephant. And it brought back all the Bhaktis about elephant. And I goes, oh, this is really, really good. This is really easy. I could find anything now. I could just, whatever I feel like. So but what we really were trying to tackle at the time was, when Kirtan, in a Kirtan Darbar, how do you find a Shabd? Because getting into the technicalities of the way Guruji wrote Bani, Gurbani is written with a lot of lagam matra, it's written with Gurbani grammar, Vyakaran, it's written with grammar. So one word could be written in multiple ways. So unless you know the exact spelling of a Bhakti, it would be very hard to find it. So it really was an experiment about first letter searching to say, can we do this in just take the first letter of each word and say, could I find it like that? And honestly, it was a prototype beta version, and just a mess about to say, let's try and do that. Put the letters in, and any Bhakti I'm thinking about, I just go and it comes up, and there's one result or two results. I say, whoa, what's going on here? But it's the way Guruji's written Bani. It's beautiful. Like you've got 60, say it's about 60,000 Bhakti, and each one of those by just putting 4 or 5 letters, and you can get to it. So. Maharaji Kirpaya Sare, even all of that, but that's what really set it off, was the ability to say, I don't have to ask the Kirtanis what shabds they're doing. I'll wait till they start, and then I'll just find it. And when you can do that, then it was dynamic, and anyone in the Sangat could go off and do that. So we prototyped it at one Kirtan, and Maharaj took it from there. Really, it was. I
remember being at camp and an Anand coming up on the screen. I didn't know what an Anand was. But I was hearing it for the first time and seeing it, the Song of Bliss coming up on the screen, and I just think so many people have come through that gateway. It must have. I'm guessing here, in my naivety, it probably took for 60,000 Bhakti. Are we talking years?
No. I'm a programmer, so I know how to write. I was programmer at the time. It was done through code, So it made it easier. I'm a bit nerdy like that. I do nerdy things with code and spreadsheets and all sorts of things. And so it was more the packaging it up, making it software. At the time I was working with automation. It's not to go into too much detail, but like PowerPoint automation, so the ability to say click on that and then it automatically makes a presentation for you. It was making, before Sikhi Dimash, you should make a Microsoft PowerPoint presentation and you could navigate it from the software. So that you're hidden away, but you can still navigate. So is packaging it up to make it into something useful was, might have took a little bit longer, but it it was fantastic work from, you know, every Gursikh, no Gursikh does anything on their own. So it's fantastic work from the Gurbani CD team in the first place to make it electronic. I mean, that must have taken a long time to type up every pankti, check it, proofread it. Then, you know, Seva Singh, who did a translation in English. And, you know, obviously translations can never be, you know, they can never be totally accurate or anything like that. But it's someone's understanding of Bani, isn't it? And it gave us all a nice introduction into it.
Khalsa Club has made a comment that it's fair to say that Bhai Saab's work has helped millions of Sikhs. I think that's probably fair, bro. But Buddy, I know your time is very, very valuable. I want to get back to this book, Bud. Actually, before I do, Bud, you said something that really caught me off guard. I'm really interested to know more about. You said at the beginning that you spent time with the Enlightenment course, taking it to prisons, to speaking to the Sikhs. I'd really be interested to speak with you about that. How would you'd have to approach? I'm guessing you approached central government. They gave you a level of clearance, and then you were able to access prisons.
No, what it was is one of the Gursikhs, Amandeep Singh, he goes into prison anyway. He's a prison chaplain.
Okay.
So it was one of his days, and he just said, "Why don't you guys come in and just talk to the prisoners?" And so we thought, great, it's an opportunity to talk to people who may have, you know, they may be feeling down, they may be feeling guilty, regret, whatever it might be. That was, I'll be honest, it was one of the most receptive groups that we did the course with. Really, they were very, very, very receptive of it, and you know, they understood some of it and not all of it, but they were very engaged. It's something I would like to do a little bit more of in terms of different countries, because I think we've probably got a decent chaplaincy service in UK, perhaps. I mean, I don't know, but it would be a fantastic thing to be able to go to maybe, you know, the States prison where there's Sikhs or something to talk to them about it.
I imagine people there would have. I think we don't fully appreciate the access we have to Gurbani. I spoke to a Singh that was had to spend some time in prison. He had to make a sacrifice. If we could just put it that way, I can't give the further details, but he had to make a sacrifice, and so the sacrifice that he made in a Dharmic sense meant that he had to break a law, and he was in prison. And he was telling me about how difficult it was being away from the Sangat. And he said the first time that he heard Kirtan, after being in isolation for so long, he was crying his eyes out. And it was the same Kirtan that we can choose to listen to with so much freedom. And that was where the interest about inmates and being in prison was, because, I mean, this guy's he's a very, in my opinion, he's a very collected, strong, secure person. But he goes, when I heard Kirtan, I just started crying my eyes out. And I think we have this this belief that everything's at our fingertips and it will remain like that for eternity, but it's not. And you talk about it in the book, how life is finite, and whilst we're at the pinnacle of the creation, it's not permanent. You write that in the book.
You know, when we only appreciate something when it gets separated from us. You know, lockdown is a good example of it, isn't it? When we missed Sangat so much when we were sitting at home just getting, you know, probably not the greatest side of us come out, probably to some extent when we're in isolation. And imagine a person in prison. I mean, that must be like really, really hard. And I always emphasize that, you know, Kirtan being done live versus Kirtan being listened on a tape. It's a what we say Jameen Asman da fark, It's a huge, you know, when the atmosphere gets changed by a person singing, it's indescribable. You know, jida Gurbani कहती है ना, तहाँ बैकुंठ जय कीर्तन तेरा तू आपे शरदा लाए. Oh, बैकुंठ, really heaven that everybody's asking for in the world. They're asking for this heaven. But the heaven is there, and if you get connected in Kirtan, that's real heaven. I can absolutely understand what that person's saying, because it's you know, going back to some of the things we were talking about. If when we do it every day, it becomes like, okay, we're doing it every day, but you know, I've got used to part, I might have got used to Simran, I might have got used to, you know, Guru Kirpan, I try to do Kirtan, pretty dodgy, but the Kirtan karita, Keaton, you start getting ras from a shabd when you've done it about 10 times. And it's unfortunate that Keetaniya, they change their shabds quickly, you know? Like we're trying to show how many Keetan I could do or something, but you get
What's that about, bro?
You have to
Just
keep...
enjoy the shabad, didn't it?
You have to keep doing that shabd. When you do it 10, 15, 20 times. There's some shabds, people probably hate me for doing Keetan. I probably do the same shabd over, but it's like the shabd starts... I've never tasted the shabd exactly the same twice. It's you know, Guruji Namanaro, where we say Namanaro, every day it gets different. It's strong, it gets different. Huh? So the shabd is a beautiful thing. It's like it's you can't get bored of it if you connect.
Rob, you put it. I don't think you realise what you said there, but I was listening to you intently, and you put it so beautifully. You said, "I never tasted the same shabad twice," and like that's the truth of it, man. It's food, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
Shabad is bhojan, and that like Maharaj says, I feel embarrassed almost quoting Gurbani to you, but Maharaj says, "Meethe har gun gao, meethe har gun gao jindu tu, meethe har gun gao." Be that har gun gao, that har, when you sing God's praises, it's mitta, it's sweet like sugar, and like that's this is where I think we've perhaps failed in our education systems, but we're doing it successfully now. We're giving an understanding that Gurbani is alive, that it is nutrition, that it is food for our souls, it's food for well-being. And when we start looking at it that way, as opposed to just a replacement to music, you know what I mean? People think kirtan or music,
Yeah.
but it's not in that category. It's food for your soul.
Yeah.
And the way that you put it so more beautifully than I did. You said you've never tasted the same shabad the same way twice. That's just bang on. That is so bang on, Paz.
Music, it's not to not, someone might enjoy music, man. Look here, why would I want to criticize anyone for that? But that's kind of rasana. Some people's lyrics can touch your soul, can't even if it's kachi, what Guruji calls kachi bani, you know? It can touch your soul because you can relate to that, you can resonate with it. With this Gurbani, there's an element of it that we resonate when we're at that of the stage of it, but there's a beauty of Guruji showing us a whole element of stuff that we don't know about. And every day we read Anand, Meri Mai, Sadhguru, but what does that mean? You know? What does that mean? The Guruji saying that when, you know, in Bani, when Guruji says Meri Mai, you know, Ma, you know, a bacha calls out to their mother for two reasons. You know? The reason is, Je dukh laga hove, ja o happy hove. You got something happy, you got some happiness. Gurbani is that, jadon maa kiya jada hunda, there's shabds in Bani where it says, you know, Mahi man mero bas na. Guruji is saying it's crying to Ma. Nis basar bikhen kota, what the kabid ro kota hai. Day and night, me panch phasya hai. How can I stop it? Manu pukara na. And in Anand Sahib is a Manu pukar because Ananda ana. Guru Sahib said, Ananda ha gaya meri maa hai na. And so what Guru is showing us is some things that we can, the reason why it's very different from music, from songs, because maybe, sorry, my background is a little bit, I actually used to rap music and all that kind of stuff, you know, want to kill a cop, you know, that stuff. You know, gangster.
Bro, sorry to cut across you there. Before I started this live, if someone bet me £1 million that by somebody would say the sentence, kill a cop. Yeah. I would have taken that bet. There's no way I could have got you to say that sentence. God knows how we've got here, but I'm grateful to be here, bud. Carry on, please. Please continue.
That's the kind of stuff I was doing. You have fear of a black planet and all that stuff. But it, you know, that used to give me, I used to like, you know, so like listening to that. When I listen to Barney, is a different thing. You can't, that can't touch that part that Barney's touching. It can't do it. It can't reach there. You know? There's something deep in your conscious that's alive, and it's Waheguru, and it's inside. And it doesn't matter. We're not. You know, we're not what maybe what Guruji wanted us to be in terms of uchi avastha of you know, a soul that's gened, you know, we're dead while we're alive, and all the concepts I talk about. But at the same time, it's still, even a slave can feel something, you know, from the Raja. You know, you can feel something. So you feel something. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you don't get, you know, just sukh dinde ya, bhukh dinde ya, dukh dinde ya, no? for us, it doesn't matter because the Shabad is there, you know? The Shabad is there. That's what I still can't reconcile some of the things the Sikh did in our history. Manu, you know, we were talking about it earlier today. You know, where the Gursikhs sat in front of the train, you know, and they were just trying to feed the Sikh on the train. You know, I said to the Singhs today, I goes, what would we do? I goes, we'd just say, just get off the track. He's coming too fast. We'll meet him at the next stop, you know. But was Sikh on Shidi Bali to feed the Sikh on the train. What was going through there? What they must have been in, you know, they didn't get what we call veparwa, they didn't care. And that's Sikhi spirit. I hope that we never lose that, you know? That if we've lost it, the Guru Sahib beinti that we get something back, you know? There's some spirit that we want, you know? That spirit is, and that spirit isn't going to come from us listening to songs, you know? Which is unfortunate. It's not going to come from, no one can inspire. I've never read anything close to Gurbani, and nothing. You could talk to me about articles, I've read psychology, I've never read nothing like Gurbani, nothing. It's unbelievable cheez. Gurbani is jag mein chanan, karma bas hai man aaya, na kirpa aake mildi hai. Do we go say we listen to it? We've been given such a beautiful, you know, I do have read a little bit about Christianity, how they do their prachar a little bit, you know, but you know, they say a pastor in the church, he can make the most interesting story in the world, which is what they believe is obviously Jesus' story, into the most boring thing ever. We've got this thing as well. What we don't want to do is, are we hiding this message? Have we misrepresented it? Are we bad examples? You know, what's going wrong? Because we're doing something not right. You know, that this message is the most important message for humanity. It's the most important message, you know, Sikhi is, and it needs to be propagated, you know, somehow.
But on that point, coming back to the book then, which is, I think you've made a valid point there, and so the book does just that. I'm just really interested to know, sometimes they say riding a bicycle fast is easy, riding it slowly is hard. It's like a martial arts analogy where people talk about how if you can do a technique slowly with perfection without seeing any flaws, you can do it fast without any flaws being seen by the eye. And so the question I'll ask you is, you've made this book so beautifully easy to understand, and it's such a simple use of text to explain the message. The question I've got for you is, how hard was it? Because reading is easy because you've made it easy. But how hard was it to compile the text?
It was I don't like to call Seva hard, you know, because then it makes I put some effort into it. But it's not fair, no? But I had to rewrite it. I wrote it and it was just, what the hell is this, you know?
Okay.
If I read it again, I'd rewrite it again. You know? It's one of those. I'm not a writer by default or by skill.
You could have fooled me, Budge.
I'm not a writer, no? And I went to I was underprivileged, you know. I went to underprivileged school, all this kind of thing. I didn't finish my degree, you know. But it's not to try to make myself out to be something. I could try and pretend I'm some author with some next level knowledge of Sikhi or anything like that. All I know is that the Guruji just puts something in your way and says that needs to be said somehow, and then it was just मैं मूर्ख की क्या तक बात है मैं क्या सकता हूँ I want to say that I think there's much better writers than me in the Panth, and there's much better ज्ञान वाले people थोड़े वर्गे who can do a better job than me, you know. It was a shorter upperala to kick something off in a new direction, you know? There's a void.
But I'm going to read from your book again, is that okay, Podge?
Hanji.
This is in chapter 6. You speak of ego being the root cause of all pain, which is obviously mirroring Maharaj's message, right? And you say, under the subheading, God or ego, never both. Yeah. You say, our ego makes us self-centered, and it is the root cause of our separation from God. And then you go on to say, the good news is that the disease of our ego is curable. It starts by recognizing how small and insignificant we are in God's command and creation. Our life and our circumstances are forever changing. The past is continually determining our present, and what we have today may not be there tomorrow. That is a good reason to treat others fairly and to not hurt them with our words or actions. I just think that's so beautiful, bro. It's such a simple message, and we seem to have lost that in our day-to-day connection with other people, Hannah.
Mm-hmm. You know, when we talk about ego, because ego is the center of the problem, and you know, five dude, when we look at what they really are, there are interactions really. Our five evil of lust, anger, greed, attachment, and you know, our egotistical pride or Gurbani, what we say. It's how we interact. And my lust is how I interact with the world, right? My anger is how I interact with the world. My attachment is how I interact with the world. Huh? My greed is what do I perceive in the world, and I want it. And my hankar, that's why it's different from the home. Hankar is how you interact with individuals. That's what hankar comes out. I make myself out to be more than what I am. And you know, just speech, hey guys, it's a very, very difficult thing because it's Goda by nature. You know, we've got this thing called hinsa, it's a violence we've got inside of us, what we call chara, agniya. But we haven't gone into certain things in that book, which is, it's good, it's compact. I know there's lots more to talk about, but you know, we have got fires inside, and those fires drive our speech as well. And you know, if I see you as you're a threat somehow, you're somehow a threat for me, you know. If a Gursikh's my threat, I really don't know who my friend is, you know.
Whoa, that's so big.
And you know, we've made Sikh a threat, and because maybe our vichar might not meet on some things, and because Gurbani is a philosophy, you know. There's both. It's a philosophy. I'm going to get things wrong. I have to accept that I don't understand it all. And nobody would necessarily understand it because puller and the sabko a pull guru kartar guruji knows what it really is, and we have to just say what's the vichar that resonates with me, and I understand that, and I'm gonna try to do it, you know. But just sweet speech they're going to these are the guna that are going to go with us. It's how I treat humans. What did I do? What seva have I done here? I can make the best house in the world. I could be the best. You know, I've got 9 promotions in my job, you know? And so what? You know, Guruji gave me a nice house. So what if I say I'm doing it? If Guru gave me, that's their prasad, then that's different. And I've got to pay Guruji back for something, what he's given me. But so what? I know if I'm doing it, it's the what we've done. Then nothing. So why am I talking rude to somebody? I don't know why I would do that.
But again, you've got this way of saying things that the whole world seems to have gotten wrong, and you've got a way of saying it in such a simple way that it makes it look so silly. Like you just said something so powerful that there's so much politics and almost hatred between Gursikhs, right? And you said it so well that if a Gursikh is my enemy, then who's my friend?
You know what? It's really interesting. By Jagaraj Singh, you know, shortly before he passed away, you know, he rang me. Must have been only a few weeks before, and it's to do with some issue that he wanted some advice on. But you know, when he rang me, he said to me, we said Fateh, and he goes, "It's so lovely to hear your voice," you know. I think my wife don't say that to me, you know. Gursikh is so beautiful to hear your voice, you know. You know, there's 2 things that came across from him as well, because we can learn a lot by just he said some vichar, but there's, you know, your acharan, the way you act, what you say, you know, that's more than what I write in a book, you know, or what I might write or I might say in a speech off the stage, you know. That's just an explanation of what we're trying to do. But do I do it? Can I say I do what I do in that book? And so there's 2 things that the other thing was that he's talking to me about this, you know, he's dying, right? And he's saying to me, oh, in England we're going to do this Panj Singh thing, and you want you to be this, and you want another thing, and I'm there, and he's at the end he's going, I was just saying, what are you talking about? What are you doing? But it's like, you know, when we say, why am I here? you look, Sadiq Gursikh Hage even here now. Why, they can give us a lot. We can learn from everybody. You can learn things that you. Yeah, sorry. Sorry.
Tarsem Singh. I love you, bro. We're gonna humble Benty, bud. Before we shut the live down, humble Benty, I'd be so grateful if you would could we just recite the good mantra together for 1 minute? Is that cool? No way, bro. No way, bro. I'm behind you. No way, bro. Before you start the Simran group, Bhai Sabji, because after the Simran, I'm going to just say Fateh, yeah? So, final announcement. This is the book. It's Why Am I Here by Tarsem Singh. I really enjoyed the book. Please check it out. It's available from the Share Charity Instagram page if you Instagram message them, or you can also get it on eBay if you search it. I think someone could put the link in the description. Humble request, Satsanga ji. We're gonna be blessed. We're gonna do like for maybe a minute or so. We're gonna do some Simran with Bhai Sabji if they don't, because they're gonna bless us with this chance to meditate together. So if we could put our backs up straight, get comfortable where you are. Maybe put your back up straight if you can. If you can't, that's absolutely cool. And then just listen to Bhai Sabji recite the Guru Mantra, and if you can join in, Bhai Sabji, over to you.
Waheguru Ji, Satguru mera bemohtaj, Satguru mere sacha saaj, Satguru mera sabas ka data, Satguru mera purkh vidata, Gur jaisa nahi ko dev, Jis mastak bhag so laga sev, Satguru mera तान नितान, सतगुर मेरा सर्व प्रतपाले, सतगुर मेरा मार जीवाले, सतगुर कहूं सद बल जाया, प्रगट मार्ग जिन कर दिखलाया, सतगुर मेरा तान नितान, सतगुर मेरा घर दी बाण, सतगुर कहूं सद बल जाया, प्रगट मार्ग जिन कर दिखलाया, जिन गुर सेवया तिस भौ ना व्यापै, जिन गुर सेवया तिस दुख ना संतापै, नानक सोदै सिमरत बेद, पार ब्रह्म गुर नाहि भेद। वाहिगुरु 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 Waheguru, 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 Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa,
Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.